Hello everybody, welcome to Sonictalk episode, it's 724, recording today on Wednesday the 17th of August. This is the music technology chat show. We talk about all things to do with music technology, and yes, I'll agree, sometimes in the summer we have to stretch it a little bit because nobody does anything, and that's probably linked to one of the topics that we'll get onto a little bit later. But I want to say thank you very much to all our live viewers. We've got people in the YouTube chat room. If you could want to watch us live on YouTube, we've got people in the IRC, we've got people in the Discord, and also we now have the ability to throw people's comments up live on the show, such as, I was wondering where I recognised him from the Super Strong Rig video, which will lead me on to introducing our guests. So, but first of all, I just want to say thank you to everybody for watching, and also before we go, I wanted to plug our Patreon, because essentially what I've got, I did a preview of the Malevolent PWM, which I've got in for review, and we've got this new idea, which I'll just play this first, and you can see it, and then it'll all be okay. So let's see if I play this. Then I promise I'll get on to our guests. Yeah, that's the sound of the PWM. How could I not review something that's made by PWM? Malevolent. This is the synth from Paul Whittington and Future Sound Systems, Finley, Shakespeare. And it's a modular synth with a kind of keyboard version. And Right, I'm not going to play the whole thing, because essentially what I've done is I've done a sort of pre-review that goes out to our Patreons, and if you've got questions you want to ask about that synth, we're going to do a kind of special video for those, which is all part of us trying to kind of figure out how to do a different tier. So if you've got any questions, they might end up in the review anyway, but if not, then there'll be another video which will go out to our Patreons, and that's one way you can support us. Anyway, that's enough of that. Let's start introducing some people. We'll start off with our friend over at in Birmingham. We've got all the Bs this week. Birmingham, 2 Brightons and a Bath. Birmingham, Paulee, Alex Bow, how are you? Of course, this is
Woo.
Magical Synth Adventure, which I must get round to changing your third. How are you?
Yeah, not bad, actually. I must say, and this might be a good kind of topic to discuss in the future, it's been quite a large undertaking getting this first video done. Just because I haven't yet got a workflow, like a really sort of streamlined workflow. You know, because you do all your mixing stuff with all your cameras and things like that, and make it look easy. I know it's not, but I have a lot to learn. But I'm probably like 2-3 days out from releasing the video, which is good because my wife could give birth at any moment. And then I might be out of action for a couple of weeks. I can't,
Can you just wait, darling? I just need to publish this video.
I'm not changing the nappies for a couple of hours while this renders. It wouldn't fly. But yeah, I'm pretty good. As I said, just being really creative. And I think that has kind of actually helped me stay calm throughout the whole debacle, with tests and scans and things like that. I always know, well, I can go and be creative for a couple of hours later and chill out. So that's me.
Excellent. Well, lovely to have you, Paulie. Always a pleasure. And we've also got, I'm going to do the reveal for the final guest, because we've got a new guest this week. So we've also got Mr. Matthew Hodson, aka Maths, or Maths, there in his modular studio. I think that would be a fair description. How are you, Matt?
I'm all right. Yeah, actually, I'm going to be getting a new studio, hopefully in a couple of months. So I'm doing a bit of speccing up all of that and thinking about how I'm going to kind of have this at the heart of everything. So instead of having like a standard mixing desk and all that kind of thing, this is basically going to be the desk, the synths, the voices and everything like that, kind of going to have it so you can kind of lay it down or stand it up on an easel. So I'm just figuring out all that kind of studio gubbins kind of thing, and going to go for kind of a self-build, actually. I don't know if anyone out there rents a studio or whatever, but the price of renting a studio space compared to, I don't know, even building your own from scratch in your garden. It does, I think, make sense to go out there and spend 15 grand possibly on a bespoke building as opposed to renting for all those years. And rent, seems to be going up more and more. So, yeah, I think I'm going down the self-build route. So if anyone knows how to build like a cabin in your garden, let me know, and I'll make you a few cups of tea in exchange.
There are many ways to do this, actually. I mean, I've been thinking the same thing, working from home so much. I mean, unfortunately, the kind of video studio aspect, I need a much bigger space than I've got available at my house. I wish perhaps I'd thought about this ahead of time and had a bigger spare room or a double garage that I could have utilised. But property prices haven't really allowed for that. So I'm thinking about it.
I want to kind of have that ability to get straight into the live streaming as well a little bit easier, because right now I have to
turn it on and go
around a little bit, and so it's kind of when I'm in the flow, which is what usually happens with this, I can just flick the cameras on, good to go, decent connection, decent lighting, all that kind of thing. So it's the next step, so stay tuned.
Yeah, I can totally get that. Well, of course, last week we were in Roland for the Roland shop opening. We did shoot some video there. I'm not sure if it's going to see the light of day yet or not. It had to go past various kind of editorial people and whatnot, and they haven't got back to us, so I don't know what's going on with that. But it was fun, and the fact that I could do this at their studio and it worked fine. There was people were asking what the what I was using. It was just a Shure headset, just a relatively cheap one, but that sounded fine, and it meant I didn't have to take all of this, just the kind of screens. So that worked really well. But anyway, let's get on to our final guest. It's Mr. Chris Black from Battery Operated Orchestra. You may recognise him from such videos as the Utopia Strong rig and the Maths Rundown rig, and also might even recognise his synth and his hands from some 5 minutes with he did. In fact, isn't that the I recognise the Analog Solutions back there. What's that?
The fuse box.
That is that fuse box. That's right. He did a video on that for us. I can't believe we haven't had you on before. What am I thinking?
It's a strange meta experience going on. I don't really know if I'm watching you or if what's happening. This is odd. But no, thank you for having me. It's really, really great. Lovely.
Good. Well, Chris, of course. No, well, I don't know. Chris, if you haven't check out Boo Electric, the music and the mixes he does for Battery Operated Orchestra. Is that what are you known as Battery Operated Orchestra still, or what's your kind of official band moniker now?
Oh, God,
because it's quite a mouthful.
Syllables. It really does. It trips everyone up. So we just call us Boo or whatever. I don't know. Anyway, we can't get rid of it now. It's there for good. So just call us whatever you like. Go Oi, and we'll probably turn around. We'll hear you.
Very, very topical. Yeah. That is actually quite topical. I think we've got a topic with the word "oi" in it, but we'll get onto that a little bit later. But yes, thank you everybody for joining us for this week. Like I say, I'm hoping if you've got any questions, we have the ability now, and it does seem to be working. If you want any questions for the panel or anybody, throw them in, and we'll try and leave some space at the end to answer them. And it might even get featured on the little teaser that I've been doing at the end of every one. Because now what I'm doing is a little kind of short video, which kind of, it does rather condense the ums and the ers and the kind of thinking parts out of the replies, because you've got to get it into a minute on Instagram. But it's been working out okay so far. So yes, please do. Right. Well, we'll start topically, because as we know, in the UK, it has been an insanely hot period. I haven't got anything to post for that. Keeping your studio cool. That says Roland Store. That doesn't really help. But anyway, we'll have that. But basically, I don't know about you, but one of the reasons I'm at home is because even now the office is still too hot. It hasn't rained enough to cool down the massive night storage heater of a roof that we've got. It's still almost 30 degrees in there, which is 2 degrees cooler than it was, a few days ago. But this is actually quite challenging, because creative work, generally, when you're in the flow, your metabolism speeds up and you generate heat. You get quite warm. I mean, this is what I find anyway. Maybe it's not the same for everybody. So how do you work within, how do you cool your environment? How do you create the environment? Because, I mean, as we know, we spoke to Ty about this. He said, get air conditioning. It's the best thing you'll ever do. It's like, yes, but we've got quite a big space. It's pretty expensive. What sort of strategies do you have to do that? I'll come to you first, Chris, just because, well, why not? You're on. Say something.
Well, it's all down to what you just don't. Yes, you're alive. Do not swear. Yeah, I get it. It's all about what you're wearing, isn't it? So yeah, the mantra here for a little while has been do it in your pants, which is basically the only way to survive, because we've got like tons and tons of rock wool in the floor and the walls to keep the sound in, but unfortunately what that also does is keep all the heat in. So and as you're saying, when you've got even one person in this room with the somehow when you're thinking or concentrating, you really generate a lot of calories of heat, don't you? But this is the first time I've properly been able to wear clothes in here. But I'll say this, last time I was in Sydney, it clocked on at it was 47 degrees C. And we were in a very small Airbnb at the top of a tower block with no aircon, and that's a trial. And the thing we discovered or that we used to cool ourselves was frozen flannels. It's the only way.
Frozen flannels.
Get a load of flannels, make them wet, put them in the freezer. Yeah.
That's a great idea. I like the sound of that. Funnily enough, I did come up with a show title even before we started, which was going to be Sitting in Your Pants. So we were already kind of halfway there to get, because I'm not at the moment, but yeah, quite often what I've been doing in here, when I've been working here, is just don't wear a shirt. Just try and kind of, because it's cooler in here because we don't get the sun on it. This is just a back bedroom in my house, but it's quite small and I can't really shoot videos. It's fine for doing this sort of thing. Okay, well, Paulee, I know we've joked in the past, haven't we, about the if you see a goth in sunlight, put them in the shade, take them in, give them a cup of water. But I mean, not only for you, but I guess your wife must be suffering from this heat. I mean, it must be insane, because you've got an extra little kilowatt heater in there while you're pregnant.
Sure.
But what do you do to keep cool?
Of course, fans are important. We just caved in and bought a fan. And then we tried the trick of putting frozen bottles of water in front of the fan to get like ghetto aircon, which seemed to work quite well. But in terms of being creative, it's got to be portable devices in the garden at the moment. So sort of laptop, maybe a couple of Volcas, etc., and just do a little jam that way, I think. Or one I love is Korg Gadget. Korg Gadget is absolutely brill for when it's too warm to go in the studio. You switch it on, it gives you a random title, so you're away, and you just load up, some of the plugins and then get going.
Right. Okay. Well, anything perhaps that can get you there quickly without all the kind of, because often as you start to get hotter, and then when you're figuring out and solving problems, I guess that's not a bad idea actually. Matt, what about you? I mean, I don't know how much heat does modular generate? Can it be quite warm?
Enough.
Have you got the stuff with the valves in?
Yeah, a few of those. No, it gets warm enough, and I'm one of these people that I don't do very well in heat. I'm sorry to moan about the warm weather, but I'm one of those. If it gets too hot, I just have to lay down. It's weird. I just get heat exhaustion, I guess. I don't know. So it doesn't really help answer the question so much, but I mean, aircon, I'm definitely with Ty, and I bought myself one of these nice Dyson air purifiers where it sucks in the air and then purifies it, cools it, and then spits it out. That's brilliant. But when it gets too hot, I tend to start doing that kind of stuff away from the studio that informs what you do in the studio. So just as simple as I've got so many books with ideas in and scribbles, and they might be things like they might be ideas for patches, they might be ideas for workflows, they might be ideas for approaching a remix for somebody or an album or something like that, or some visual concept, or even to-do lists, catching up on emails, all that kind of thing. So I go into like admin mode, really. I get away from that, and it. And last week it was so hot, wasn't it? And I kind of spent a week away from making music, and I really feel refreshed from doing that actually. And I got a load of that other stuff done. And actually today I started going through some of these kind of patches. I started designing, drawing out, and that kind of thing. I should maybe publish some of my black books with all of my drawings in and signal paths and ideas for songs. They just look like such crazy scribbles. and then you turn the page, and then you'll have a shopping list, and then you'll turn the page, and then there'll be some idea of like some weird oscillator routing, and and then must buy this and.
That's not a bad idea, Matt. Yeah. Maybe what you should do is do a series of cards. So you like the creative decision stuff that Eno does, and it's not an unusual thing. So you just come up with a load of cards, just turn, flip through the books, and just kind of get 50 of them or 100 of them, and just kind of go put them out in cards. And that wouldn't be hard. Or set up a Twitter account, then just do one a day, or something like that.
Gonna do it. Doing it.
Okay.
Thanks, Nick.
I'm glad to hear that. I'm glad. Yeah, it can be. I know it's difficult. I mean, I think the problem is it depends what country you're in. I mean, in the UK, we're all in the UK, the panel this week, so we're not really set up for these extremities of weather. We've had these variations, but it's not usually like this. Usually it's like a day or two, and then you're back to normal rain, greyness, whatever it may be. Whereas countries where this sort of thing has been the norm, then the infrastructure is there. You probably have got air conditioning that can cope with that kind of stuff, or your building is built, in the shade. So, we're just not geared up for it. That's the thing, isn't it?
It's totally different over here. We actually had Bree's sister over from Sydney, and they always laugh at us whinging Poms, going, "Oh, it's 28 degrees," and they're like just laughing at us. But when she came over, she literally said, "Oh, it's different here. Yeah, it's a different kind of heat, isn't it?" And it feels different because like you say, we've got this Victorian infrastructure that freezes in the winter and boils in the summer, and there's 10 minutes in October when it's sort of livable. But it's true, it's totally different. But yeah, I haven't been in this room for to do any work for ages, and we've got a single just finished, and we've been trying to get ourselves together to shoot the video, and we just can't do it because it's just like I can't even think, let alone start holding a camera and doing stuff. Because I think that advice, get away from it, take some time out, chill, do something else. It's probably the best advice. Yeah.
Well, Matt Greer via YouTube says, "Us in the Deep South don't really feel sorry for you guys, lol." And I suppose that's fair enough. I mean, what could you say? Yeah. I mean, I've been to the Deep South. I think we used to go to Summer Nashville, and I remember going there, and it was not only was it 102, it was also something like 98% humidity, and the convention centre that Summer NAMM used to be in was called I can't remember where it was, but it was in the centre of town, and you getting from your apartment to the hall. By the time you got to the hall, you were just kind of drenched. If you were late or anything, you couldn't get hot. But then when you're inside, the air conditioning was so fierce, you had to put a jacket on. It was ridiculous, And it's just so anyway. It was just sort of like it's a bit of an extreme set. Anyway, it's I guess
nothing worse than all that sweat instantly freezing. It's just
I guess half our audience are going, "What are you talking about?" Whereas the UK ones will probably be identifying with it. I suppose that's fair enough. Anyway, let's have a quick break for our friends over at Baby Audio. Baby Audio makes creative effects designed to add colour and depth to your mixes. They won Plugin of the Year 2021 in Future Music and Computer Music Magazine nominated them for the SOS Awards 2 years in a row. Why not try it? Crystalline. It's an excellent algorithmic reverb plugin inspired by 20th century studio reverbs, but offering higher fidelity thanks to 21st century computing power. Reverb plugin with a variety of creative features such as the ability to tempo sync pre-delay and reverb decay times. And if you are interested, get 15% off when checking out with the code ST15 over at babyaudio.com. ST15 will get you 15% off any of their plugins. We thank them very much for their continued support. Right, we've probably got some more topics, haven't we? Let's see what's next. There are a few... oh, yeah, here we go. I'm going to go for this one. So this is 10 things to do with your Volca Modular, which is more of a catalyst, shall we say. This is a video from the Audio Wanderer via CDM Link, and... there's some really creative stuff. One thing, he's built a load of DIY knobs for kind of attenuating signals. The Volca Modular is probably a little bit underutilized because it's quite unique. Some of the Volcas are not taken all that seriously. And I haven't played with this one, but I would like to try it. Very much on the East Coast. But really, it was really kind of more, to say, check out this cool video, but more to sort of go, well, okay, well, what's the last synthesis thing that you kind of went, oh, I've not tried that before, and you went, yeah, that's good, because often, I think there may be a misconception that many people who work with synthesizers all the time know everything, and they don't. Obviously, I mean, I certainly don't, and just being able to kind of find a new technique, you go, yeah, I'll try that. And then you can often apply that across all sorts of different synthesizers, whether they're modular or parameter-driven menu synth. So I'm going to come to you first, Matt, because this probably happens to you all the time. All you got to do is flip open a page in your notebook, right? And you've found something. But I'm just thinking what. Yeah. Have you tried the Volca Modular first, I suppose, is a question. And B,
do you know what? I remember when we first talked about that on this program, and I was like, yeah, definitely getting that cheap as chips. In fact, if I had one of them, that's probably what I would use in the garden. Do what Paulie says, go outside with a
battery
with something and play with it. Absolutely. And it's battery operated. I'm bringing that in as well. There, Chris.
Cheers, man.
You see, pulling everyone in today. So no, I haven't got that. I should get it. I should definitely get it for sure. But a technique, it's not synthesis, but it's actually sampling using samplers. I've gone back to playing around with a little bit in samplers. In fact, this is going to be my next live stream, where what I've been doing is coming up with some ideas. So I'll come up with just a really nice melody or some interesting envelope shapes, and I jam it and I record about 15 minutes of it straight into the computer, stereo. And I put it into a sampler. And then what I've been using is step sequencing the playhead of the sampler start time. And it's all quantized. So you can jump backwards and forwards in time to a particular point where you was jamming. Everything's nicely in time. And you suddenly build a full track out of, just out of a little bit of jamming and that kind of thing. There's probably a name for it, that sort of technique. As I went into the rabbit hole and I started building some more things inside of Bitwig to do this, because it's got the grid, as you know, where you can take a sampler and do all sorts of interesting synthesis and that kind of thing. Then I started then it started sort of pulling me down a rabbit hole of like, well, this is basically kind of what Aphex Twin was doing back in the day in Autechre and that kind of thing, which is playing around with the sample playheads, the loop points, the pitching of it. And the resolution at which you trigger that, and then you can get all that kind of instant glitching sort of stuff going on at particular points and have it sound very musical. I'm probably not explaining this very well. I'll show you all in a video that I'll probably do. I might do it Friday night and just go through this because it's been so much fun to play with. So not synthesis, but more going back to samplers.
Well, kind of like granular. It's sort of like granular synthesis to a degree. So, I mean, I wouldn't say that's...
playing around with that playhead and moving it.
Yeah. Chris, what about yourself? You have. We can see you have synthesizers behind you. What have you been doing with them recently that is new?
Never you mind, son. When you... This question, the thing that I'm going to say is that it's about the Op6. So we bought the Op6, thanks for the review and everything. But the thing about the Op6, which I never even understood until I watched a video by Oscillator Sync, is that, you've got those 6 operators, and one can be a FM, one can be a filter FM, wave folder, all different bits. And you can make your own algorithm, which basically means you can plug them into each other in different orders. So, all very well and good. But what that means is that you can build a synth architecture inside a preset. You can sort of put the thing together in the way you want it to go. And it's amazing. So, Oscillator Sync says, all right, let's try and build a Juno inside the Op6. So he just puts it together. And then the front of the Op6 is sort of like a Juno 60 all of a sudden, and it works like that, and that's kind of blown my mind, because rather than
is that using custom algorithms? Is that using the user algorithm?
Exactly. So you can take each individual operator and plug it into any other operator and do it in any signal flow you want, and you can hear them and have them. You can basically have them as modulators and what's the other word? Anyway,
carriers.
It's incredible. It's a little bit mind-blowing, because for me it's like, okay, I've actually got to stop and think, what do I want to do here? Rather than the way I usually make sounds is it's more like chess rather than bowling. So what I do is bowling with synthesis. See what yep, that fell down, great. But this is more like you can actually sit and think, okay, what can we do here? It's not so you're making a preset. You're not just making a sound. You're making a whole different architecture, which you can then use to jump off and make other sounds from at that time. So that's the. That's the
you know what?
thing.
I've been ever since that deal on Reverb in the US, I've been thinking I really want to get a Volca, an Op6, and I can't really justify the expense. I've got so many synths lying around that maybe I should need to sell something to buy an Op6. But I feel really torn because I could have bought one for what was it, $280 or something in the States, but I've still got to pay £400 or £500 in the UK, and I feel a bit like, it's not. I don't like that. Paulee, how about you? I know you're an inquiring mind.
Definitely. I want an Op6 for $329 as well. You know?
Yes, please.
There's an effect algorithm now, isn't there, as well?
Yeah.
New mode in Op6 where you can put a phaser or a chorus or a distortion in between, which is cool.
That's right.
I made a little list of cool stuff while everyone was talking. So I'll go through it really quickly. One is messing around with impulse responses. And I don't necessarily mean using impulse responses, but sometimes making your own from either real spaces or taking real reverbs that you've got existing and then adding effects to them just to see what happens. Here's one for the modular crowd. Bit crushing CV. Always love bit crushing CV, which works a bit like a sample and hold. But the more you crush it, the more slower it gets and grainier it gets. And then if you put that through like a chord quantizer just on 3 notes, it gets quite nice bed of sound. I think it's called sample munging, where you stutter through like samples. Sample munging, I've heard that before on one of the forums. And one of the ones that I really love on the Ensoniq EPS 16 Plus is bidirectional. Get a bidirectional loop going. Yeah. So say if you've got a wavetable and it's scanning through nicely, if you turn on bidirectional mode, it will drop an octave and start losing its little mind and little artifacts will creep in. So I'm going to have to demonstrate that at some point.
That sounds great.
And the last two are FFT sideband filtering, which the V-Synth has, but a lot of other synths have, where when you use it, the sample, if it doesn't have any pitch, it will pick up a sense of pitch. And if you turn it up more and more, it will almost sound like an additive synth. It will get more and more smooth as you turn up that sideband filter. So you can get sounds, you can kind of fake being really good at additive synthesis if you want, and just put a sample through and then let the FFT do its thing. I
think the System 8's got some sideband filtering as well, I think.
Yeah. And one last thing, which I think Op6 has, as well as like previous Korg instruments, is wave shaping. A lot of Korg instruments have a bunch of wave shapers which come from the Korg 01W workstation from the 90s. And they're really interesting. So if you just get a sine wave and put it through one of those wave shapers, you'll get quite interesting effects from something that sounds like wave folding more to kind of saw shaping or whatever, but polyphonically, so that's kind of fun. So there we go. There's my idea for you to run away and try.
That's a lot. That's a lot of it.
You've just reminded me actually, while you're talking about all of that. I recently got a Dirt audio divider, which
lovely.
Does some of those similar kind of things where you can put an oscillator signal into it, or CV or clock, anything really, and then it'll divide it down. So then you basically get the first input is halved, then it's quartered, and so on and so on. So basically you end up with like 4 sub-octaves of the input signal, whether that's audio. If it's audio and you put an oscillator through it, you get that such massive low end. It's not subby low end though. It's because it's divided, obviously it's going to be more square waved. or if you put a clock through it, or you put some other CV through it, you can get some really interesting stuff and spit that out again. So yeah, thanks for reminding me, Pauline. I'm going to try some of those techniques as well.
Yeah.
Well, the one that the one that I got was I was doing the Moog Mavis review, and DivKid Ben was showing how to use the wave folder in that. And what was really cool is when you add a regular audio shape, like let's say a square wave, which doesn't fold very well, but then you add an LFO signal to that and put them both into the wave folder, and you turn the LFO up, so it's a sub audio rate. You get this really interesting harmonic shifting and kind of weird shifting around. So putting things into wave folders that you wouldn't automatically think to, but an LFO plus an audio rate oscillator output sounds really good. So that was the last thing I did, and that I used that in the Moog Mavis review, which is up online somewhere. And Ben, for those who need to know, DivKid has got a ton of those sort of things to try with modulars, and he's full of all of that stuff. And I usually learn stuff from him very easily. So yeah, cool.
I just remembered one more.
Oh yeah, you got another one. Okay, come on then. Let's keep it coming.
Just one. On some, this could go on all day. On some instruments, like early romplers and stuff like that, some of them have AM, which is a version of ring mod. If you use a very low-pitched sample, like down like loads of octaves, as an AM control source, could be done on modular. Let that low-pitched sample just boost the level and let it eat at your VCA. You get very, very weird sounds that sound kind of like textured folding metal and all sorts of stuff. So that one's always fun.
Lovely. Well, plenty for everybody to be going on with there, I would say. Let's see, what's the time? Let's see what. Gosh, we've got plenty of topics. It's actually not going to be a problem this week. I'm trying to think what to go to next. Gosh, it's so difficult to know. I'm kind of tempted to go with. Let's go with the Udo Super 6 editor. Why not? Let's throw that one up there. What's that? That's Vid 2, I think so. Which is actually, this is Hazel Mills. Demonstrating the new 0.52 MPE firmware, which was released at the beginning of the month. But really, this was more to do with the fact that there's an editor out for the Udo Super 6 by Sony, I think they're called. Sonicynths, $35, does NRPM and CC mode, so you got high and low resolution. It's got a whole bunch of different possibilities there. And I just thought it's interesting because you look at this synth and you just go, well, hold on, why do I need an editor for a synth like this? And it sort of got me thinking about the idea of what benefits editors have. This is an editor librarian, so I can see that. Does some synths need it? Some synths, it seems like this maybe doesn't, but I just thought that would be an interesting point to discuss. But yeah, Hazel Mills doing a thing there. If you haven't seen, she plays with Goldfrapp, various other people. She's a great player. And the Super 6, every time I hear it demoed, what's really cool about the new firmware for the Super 6 is you can freeze the delay. And George showed us that at Superbooth, and that sounded absolutely amazing. I don't know, Chris. I mean, you've got a lot of hardware stuff in there that doesn't, a lot of that stuff just, you couldn't have an editor for it anyway because it's CV controlled. But do you find editors a hindrance or a help or a? We've got the microKORG
for we used to for the live thing, and that's got a little editor on it. There was always a little bit of a lag between touching something on the screen and touching something on the microKORG. But I was looking at the and once again the Op6 has a VST version of itself, which also works as an editor. It's 200 quid though. It's expensive. I think almost as much as the Reverb deal. I mean, come on. Yeah, you buy them both. Oh dear. But I think you get one with the other, or used to. Well, for library management, keeping your patches in control. I've just got a big book. Where's my big book? Hold on. What do you just sort of scribble it down? Preset Bible.
There it is.
Oh, excellent.
It's just because the OB6 has just got a two character display. It's like a 3-character display. You just don't know what is 521. I don't know. So just write it down. But I don't find them useful. I find them confusing and slightly disturbing. I may be overstating it a little bit.
I suppose the thing is, it depends whether you prefer to be in the moment and go, this is it, this is what I'm going to use. And then, if you're going to play live and you're trying to recreate that, that's when it's, well, you need to go back to it. Then that's where it becomes an issue, obviously. I mean,
I guess, but you've said it there. It's the whole thing about being in the moment and doing something as it's happening. There are enough computers in the world already, but I'm sure they're useful. So perhaps someone could tell me why they're useful. I can see why they're needed for some synths
streaming,
with hardly any
recording.
controls.
I suppose. You could. There was that. I can't remember the name of the plugin. There was a plugin, wasn't there, that you could just snap a picture of the front panel of something that didn't have a preset and store it across the track, so that when you recall the track, you could recall the settings. And I'm guessing you probably have thoughts on this because you're in modular world. There is no preset really. Your preset would presumably be record it. But sometimes there must be, say if you're doing, so this is a scenario. Say if you're doing a paid gig and you submit the first mix to, the media composers, and they say, oh yeah, can you just go back and change something? And it's like, well, how do you do that? How do you manage that kind of situation and that scenario? Do you then result, to take photos? What do you do?
Yeah, I've done a bit of everything really like that. If I'm doing anything to picture, I am very careful about just ripping everything out, of course. What I will do always is record as much as I can through the expert sleepers, whether that's audio or CV or gates. So as long as I've got all the pitch information recorded into a DAW, which is completely recordable, and the associated audio, I've kind of got it there. And if I keep the patch, when I'm working on something to move an image, I'll keep a patch up as long as I can until we get that kind of sign off. But I haven't really done any super long form stuff like Ty does. So Ty's in the chat room, by the way. Hi, Ty. And,
hey, Ty.
So I'm mainly doing a lot of adverts or shorts and that kind of thing. So it's not really been a problem. And when I go out and play live, well, we did the rig rundown. I talked about my approach to all of that. It's again, as long as I've got the notes recorded into a computer, I can get those notes out. I can put them back into a sequencer, or they might be in a sequencer. And then for me, the fun is recreating a sound or coming up with a brand new sound for that track when I play it live. So the musical elements are still there. The timing information's there. The rhythm information and the pitch information's there. I can just then send it out to different places and replace the oscillators. Now, just going back to the original question, I used to have, there's probably two synths that come to mind where an editor was useful, and that was the Dave Smith Evolver when that first came out, just because of the way it was laid out, and the encoders stepped physically, which everyone was like, oh, why you done that, Dave? Bless Dave. And he actually, I think he did a service where you could send it back, and at the time, him and his wife would resolder them and put on some stepless encoders for you. So those editors was useful. And the other one is the Matrix 1000, which anyone who's used that sounds you have to.
It's SysX though, isn't it? Yeah,
it's SysX. Yeah, so you couldn't actually change the parameters too much on the actual machine. It was kind of like a preset machine in a way, but the editor really allowed you to get under the hood and pretty much change loads of stuff, and that opened up a lot of things. But as with anything, if you start collecting these editors, there's going to be bugs in them, and there's going to be updates, and you'll miss an update, and then you'll open it up, and it's just another thing to go wrong. And I try and move away from that workflow when I'm working in a studio as much as possible. The last thing I'll say, though, is this company who's done this, Sonicstate, by the way, what a name. I love their logo. It's like a keyboard with a sun wearing sunglasses. They've done a number of these now for like the Moog Grandmother, the Dreadbox, the Prologue, and a couple of Behringer stuff as well. So they seem like they know what they're doing. These aren't. This isn't a company that just cropped up and just thought, "Oh, I'll just make a quick buck off this." It looks like they probably know what they're doing because they've done a number of these already before.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool. I think the librarian stuff is probably the most useful. The editor, not so much in the synth like this. I don't know, but you may as well have one if you've got the other. I don't know, Paulie. What? I mean, you've got a penchant for kind of difficult to edit, small LCD synthesizers from the 90s. So I guess editors might be your friend, right?
On the topic of the Super 6, before I forget, I think an editor is going to be great because I don't think George is done by any stretch of the imagination. He keeps cramming more and more, function into the instrument, which is great, but the UI is quite limited to that bank of, but it's got a similar UI to something like the OB6, hasn't it? It's not got a screen. It's just got light up buttons. So I think eventually, especially if he adds like wavetable scanning or something like that, it's going to get a bit difficult to manage just from the instrument itself, potentially. Although it is a lovely UI as it is at the moment. But yeah, so when I was about, let's work it out. When I was about 25, I resolved to buy loads of weird late 80s, early 90s digital synths. And that was due to a website called Sealed's Deep Synthesis. And he had all these reviews in a terrible looking Yahoo GeoCities kind of website. But it has charm when you look at it now. He did loads of reviews of old synths. And when I bought them, I found that most of them had quite dreadful UIs. So there's some synths that I basically have to resort to using some. And because I'm a vintage computer enthusiast, it's worked out okay because I've got like computers that run Macintosh, Amiga, Win95, Win98, Windows XP, Windows 10, so I can get like editors in most formats. But I had to have that hobby, basically, as well. I still use Sounddiver sometimes for the...
Do you use virtualization? Just a question. Do you use virtualization for those iOS, or do you actually have hardware computers?
I've got hardware computers, yeah. A bunch of them.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yes. My wife's going to make a ton when I pass off this mortar coil selling to vintage computer geeks, I think. Yeah, I don't mind editors. I think they're a fact of life.
I think the thing is about the edit. Sorry, I think the thing about the editor is it has to, because if the editor, quite often the early editors had almost as awful GUIs as the instruments themselves. Sure. So, it's just,
charming,
there is a charming and rubbish. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I think some synths actually it is quicker. Something like a Psy 77 is actually really intimidating. But it is actually quicker to learn the muscle memory of the paging and just go from screen to screen, rather than have to do it with the editor.
Yamaha's Yamaha's legendary UI. Yeah,
that's it. With one or two synths, it's totally required because the UI is so bad. Actually, I'll make videos on them, and you can see, because there's a few that the great YouTube channel Bad Gear he hasn't covered yet. I've got stuff that will make him go white as a sheet, I tell you what, with UI. So so that'll be fun.
Well, excellent. Excellent. Well, we should. Yeah, that sounds like a pretty good idea. We have been talking for a little while. I probably do need to actually mention something from our friends over at iZotope as well. So just hold on there 1 second.
iZotope Producers Club is a one-of-a-kind membership for producers ready to take their tracks to the next level. Once you join, you'll gain access to powerhouse iZotope plugins and a curated selection of tools from our partners, such as Melodyne from Celemony. Plus, as long as you're a member, you'll get every future update to the iZotope plugins in your membership for no extra cost. We'll also regularly serve you new curated content like exclusive inspiration-sparking sample packs and preset packs, and industry-leading training ranging from our own tutorials to vocal production lessons from the world-renowned Berklee Online, taught by Grammy-winning producer and engineer Prince Charles Alexander. With new content being added every month full of valuable production techniques, tips and tricks, and solutions to common production problems, becoming a member is an investment in your career that grows as you and your career do. For more information on iZotope Producers Club, head to iZotope.com.
Very much, and we want to say thank you very much for them for sponsoring. If you want to check out, you go to iZotope.com/Sonictalk. There's a special landing page there where if you use the code Sonic10, you can claim 10% off any product as long as it's not hardware or a subscription, and that includes summer sales and flash sales, as I've demonstrated and actually used myself. So well worth checking out. We do thank them for their continued support. Okay, I'm just trying to think where to go to next, whether we should be going to questions or I think I need to do a bit of this as well. This is kind of, yeah, let's try it. Let's go for a little bit of. This is the new Make Noise Strega Musica. This is just the play out from the review I did of the Strega. Lovely instrument with made in conjunction with Alessandro Cortini. Really interesting sort of old chip-based delay and clocking and analog. Just some lovely stuff there. I kind of miss it actually. I never did get to hang on to that one. But what they've done is they've got a curated series of tracks. I think there are 13. I'll have to scroll down. I can't quite make it out on this. Let's see. I think it's actually. I think there are 13 tracks that they basically paid various artists, including Tony Rolando, who's the owner, Abel Mogurad, Alessandro Cortini, Ben Frost, Caterina Barbieri, Daniel Miller, Hiro Kone, Daniel Avery, and Manny D, amongst a few. And that's free download. So the only thing that it had to use the Strega in it, which I think is an interesting idea. You know, it's kind of this idea of creative limitations. Needless to say, they're all quite floaty and ambient just through the nature of them, although Daniel Miller's is pretty hardcore listening. And I just thought, A, did you get a chance to listen to it? And B, you know, this idea of the manufacturers doing a kind of like, well, just make some tunes with one piece of equipment is actually really powerful and quite a good idea. I'll come to you first, Chris. I don't know, do you like to give yourself creative limitations?
Yes. I mean, apart from the ones inside my own head, it's good to have a little bit of a limitation there, isn't it? I mean, when first music I ever made was with an SH1, a Copycat, and a 4-track, and that was it, off the drums and everything. But even now, it's because it's actually sometimes when you turn everything on all at once, you get a bit lost and a bit swamped and a bit confused, and it's really nice to just have one thing. And if I'm working on a series of tracks, I will just play with one synth for maybe a couple of days and just literally see if anything comes out of that. But this album's a really great idea. It's really, really interesting to see all the different people's take on this lovely, lush synth. And it kind of reminded me a bit of, do you remember Benj had an album out in 2008 called 20 Systems, which was... it went from 1968 to 1987, and each track was just one synth that came out that year. So it was Benj was doing all of the tracks. Cool. So you got a sort of flavor of each going from analog to digital. But this is actually more interesting because you've got one instrument, and now so the focus is sort of more on the artists creating it. So it's really interesting. I mean, I coined this at the last live stream we did, which was synths don't make people. Synths don't make music, people make music. So misquoting the National Rifle Association there. But it's that interesting fact that you get one piece of kit and different people's take on it. I really enjoy it.
Yeah, it's sort of the best demo you can offer, really, in many ways. I mean, I don't know, Matt. I know Make Noise have done this before, haven't they? Did they have a label? I'm pretty sure they had a label. Because they had a system, didn't they? That they'd sent around to people. So they've done it before.
That's right. I thought that was a really cool concept. I thought this was as well. I think it was just the Make Noise system that they sent around to different artists, and they were only allowed to use those modules in it. And come up with a piece of music, and I think this is really well done. This one, and really well placed. I mean, you've got artists there from quite different corners of the electronic music industry, if you like, and I know what you mean about they all kind of got a similar aesthetic and they're quite drony and that kind of thing. But I guess that's what the instrument kind of set out to do, isn't it? Because it was a collaboration with Alessandro Cortini, and listening to his albums, which I absolutely love. This doesn't sound too far off something he would come out with, in a way.
His are like, I think he's like pop drones. I would say pop shoot. I don't know if there's such a thing, but he's got a kind of thing going on there. I would say,
it's this kind of thing I like, which is that it's that walking that line of there's a melody, and it can be quite a poppy melody, but obscuring it and sitting it back amongst the sounds and the sound of the melody in a way. So I'll come up with some very basic melodies, but it's how you present them and what speed you do and what effects you've got on them, and if they're in stereo or if they've got loads of distortion and then they go through a low pass filter and it's hardly audible, but it's there. That's the kind of line I like to walk down. So I haven't downloaded this. It's cool that they're giving it away for free. And
they already paid. They paid the artists or gave them Stregas. I'd imagine is a possibility.
I guess so. I want to get my hands on one. Now hearing this, I think I could have a lot of fun with that. A lot of fun. I will give a shout out though to Manny D, who's on this album, who's actually one of my ex-students, who's like a superstar DJ now and doing absolutely amazing. It's great to see him doing so well, and he plays all over the world at the minute. And it'd be good to catch up with him. So Manny, well done, mate. You're doing absolutely awesome. Nothing to do with me, of course. He did all this himself, but it's great to see him on there.
Nice. Paulee, I don't know if I'm kind of not much 80s reverb going on in this one, but I know that there are other music. You can appreciate all kinds of music. I don't want to pigeonhole you in any way.
No, please don't pigeonhole me.
No.
So it reminded me. I've got a factoid. It reminded me of a concept that was done in about 1999, and Roland did it, and it was called At Home with the Groove Box. And basically they got people like Sonic Youth, Beck, Pavement, Air, Jean-Jacques Perry, etc. to make tracks only using the Roland MC505 Groovebox, and then they released an album, and it ended up pretty good, I've got to say.
Interesting. I think Matt Greer pointed that out as well in the chat. So I will have to check that out. But I mean, it seems like a great idea. Yeah. I suppose the danger is if there's a sound set in there that could be seen as a bit general MIDI, then you're going to have to work pretty hard to break out of the voicing and the kind of arrangement stuff. I don't recall it. It's probably worth checking out.
Yeah, it's got the JV engine in it, so it's got all the booster and ring mod and weirdness in it, as well as your standard GM kind of sound. So that's quite cool.
Oh, cool.
But I'm going to download this album later and give it a listen.
Yeah, nice one. Well, that sounds really like a lot of fun. Okay, well, I think if we've got time, we'll try and do some questions, because I have been banging on about getting people to send in questions, and so I think that's what we're going to do. So our first question, I've just get my mouse. Hopefully, now this is going to work.
A theme tune for the questions, Nick. It's like question.
Do you think I need a jingle?
Something, question time. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. I'm just
or
trying
just
to,
something like really.
Has it actually worked? Oh yeah, here we go. Okay, yeah, I know Dom's got one. I'll try. So anyway, here's a question. So this is Aquatic Borealis via YouTube. Favorite effects suites? I'm guessing that's probably plugins rather than hardware. But so anybody care to kick that off? Maybe. Okay. Let's go with Chris over there.
I've just recently changed over to a new DAW. Yes, the old computer died. It's a terrible time for me. I've been looking at free effects suites, and I found I really enjoy that Melder production effects suites. There's a whole bunch of stuff in there, like everything you can think of. But the EQ is beautiful. It's got saturation in it, and it's really good. Melder production. Free.
I remember. Yes, I think I remember. Yeah, nice one. Are they VST or AU? What's the?
I think they're both VST3, I think, and AU. And yeah, I've been really enjoying the EQ on that. I haven't even really ducting to anything else. There's a whole page of all kinds of stuff in there. It's good. Try it.
Let me just, I'll throw that in the chat room because I think I've just found a link. That's all right. We'll do that now. Melda Productions. Yeah, there we go. Nice one, Chris. Because I suppose these are the things that we tend to find. I mean, I'll have to have a think about this because I don't really use. I mean, I know Matt, you use Bitwig, but I don't know if you use any other kind of suite plugins. We have talked about plugins a few times, and I don't know what you would say to this.
I mean, back in the day, I had every single plugin going. I used to scour the internet for them and that kind of thing. But just don't need that many plugins now. I've got very limited. It's Sound Toys plugins. Just love their distortions, their Echo Boy, that filter free, really, really high end, beautiful, organic sounding, pushing anything analog into it just works really well. For any kind of weird effects and things like that, I go to Sugar Bytes. They have things like the Tornado, which really do interesting looping, and they're really good for idea generation. There's a kind of some interesting sequences. Have got an Effectrix for glitching and that kind of thing. And
that's iOS as well, isn't it? I think, isn't it? Sugar Bytes.
Yeah,
they do
I think
iOS.
they are.
Yeah.
They're cool. They do some bundles. I've recently been buying the filters from Arturia. They've got me hooked. They do a couple of really good, interesting filters. I just go for anything that's got character in it, really. And Soundtoys. Oh yeah, and Eventide. So I've got the Eventide suite as well, just because I really love their H3000s or whatever, the delays and that kind of thing. Just really interesting in the pitching you can do with it. Sending anything analog into it and playing around with the pitching can be really interesting. So that's kind of pretty much it.
Nice work. Obviously, there's so many doors come with so much stuff now. I mean, it's often all you need is there, and it's just a question of what flavors you kind of want. But Paulie, how about you?
For me, it's Native Instruments guitar rig. Surprisingly, but it's absolutely. It's still my go-to, aside from a couple of reverbs and things like that. Guitar Rig has some really cool effects in that you can modulate any parameter. So that's when it gets fun. For instance, you'll hear this in my video, which is coming out in a couple of days. There's a spring reverb, and you can change the length of the virtual spring, right? So why not whack an analog step sequence on that parameter and just let the virtual spring just go? And it gets really choppy and metallic. And I want someone to build a real variable CV controlled spring reverb. I think it could work with some kind of dampening device on the spring, so it gets shorter as it goes along.
I like
because I love that sound. So guitar rig, nice idea. Chorus, nice reverb, good delays.
Well, good shout. I'm just trying to think what for me. I suppose one worth a shout is Valhalla. Obviously, do some really good stuff. If that's what it's not really a suite, but I mean anything in the time domain and is algorithmic. Sine Vibes also do. I mean, it's all of these people who've just got brilliant algorithms. I suppose is a good place to start. But I don't really use all that many external plugins. I mean, I'm just, it's not a world I'm inhabiting in much. Most of the stuff that I use on a daily basis is things like, going across the output of this stream, for instance, to give it a bit more of a FM sort of vibe, or processing my voice. So it's not really creative effects. I would obviously give a shout out for iZotope, because you've got the stuff like the Neutron stuff, which has lots of modules within it, like limiters, EQs, and compression, and things that can kind of really shape a sound, tonal balance. All kinds of stuff like that. So I mean, they're worth a shout too. Anyway, well, thank you for that question, Aquatic Borealis. There's also let's get one more time in here. Let me see. Any chance for any chance for a plug for Derby EMOM tomorrow? I'm not quite sure what this is, but I'll throw it in there. Oh, hold on, it's that one, isn't it? Any chance of a plug for Derby EMOM tomorrow? Jim Glew's 50th birthday, and Janie GEOSynths is going to stream the whole event. Yes, okay. Well, I guess we've done
electronic music open mic, perhaps.
Yeah, that's right.
Electronic music. Yes, that's probably it. Sorry, I'm not very with it, but yes, okay. check that one out. There was also a question that came in from Nick Howes. I think Wagyu had to post this one. Do we think it's time for a paradigm shift in how studios work? Matt's comment about mixing desks, looking at VR systems as one idea, that kind of thing. Which is that's a big question. I mean, maybe we'll try and we'll try and make that succinct. Oh, I pressed the wrong button again. Too many buttons to do. Yes, probably. I mean, I'll come to you first, Chris, because I know you're reaching for your beverage or something, but you recently changed computers. Yeah, you've recently changed computers. I mean, presumably you each time you get something new, you move things around. I mean, do you have a mixing desk, or do you mix in the box or in the how do you feel about the paradigm of your working space studio wise?
Well, it's I mean, we've changed over to Reaper. It's lovely. We still have just working in the box. It's nice. It does its thing. And I was actually getting, in the middle of the heat wave recently, I was looking at all this because I've got these IKEA tables with things glued onto them so they don't fall off. And I'm starting to feel a bit hemmed in. So, yeah, a change every so often is good. As for paradigm shift, I mean, to totally change the way you work has got to be a good thing. Even going in the garden, like Paulee was saying earlier on, is that a paradigm shift? I don't know. Maybe.
Well, I suppose it depends. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm basically trying to. I mean, I've got enough different now that I don't want to change anything for a little while until I'm comfortable here, because I'm still really finding my feet and. It's a little bit. It's really weird trying to work with a new door and trying to get the sound back and work out what you're doing. So, yeah.
Well, you want friction free. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, paradigm shifts are all well and good, but there's convenience. I mean, like, for instance, the paradigm shift for us is us doing this show like this. This is all in the cloud. I'm sitting here on a Mac. I'm running PC software on a computer in Virginia. That's a big paradigm shift. And I think if that starts to kick in with things that might be happening in music production and music creation, then that might start to work. We're not there yet because of the real-time nature, and you may notice that there are some delays in our conversations because there's a big round trip, so it doesn't work quite the same. I know, Paulie, I mean, you're probably going to find yourself imposing a paradigm shift on yourself quite soon, just because you're going to have a baby, so that will change the way that you work. Yeah.
Definitely. Apparently, they say get used to 3-hour cycles. They eat, they poop, they sleep every 3 hours or something like that. So I'm thinking in that sleeping hour, if I just leave everything on, I can just run up to the studio and get a little bit done or something like that. We'll see. I am planning to be completely out of action for about 2 weeks. And then hopefully I can start to, reintroduce that creative time, because thankfully, my wife and I both work in mental health. We're both aware that we need our well-being activities in our lives, to keep well. So we're a good team. We'll work it out, basically, that paradigm shift. But yeah, I might have to work a bit more mobile, on my laptop, do a few bits and pieces on my laptop. I've got the same door on my laptop, just not all the nice hardware. So I might get into creating a lot of stuff with, MIDI placeholders and then rendering them out with the nice synths in the studio.
That's an interesting idea. I mean, just one tip is, the thing that I found when the child came along is, you don't get the luxury to kind of sit there and are just going to go, I'll ponder and tinker. You sort of go, I've got this much time. What am I going to do? So that's quite that aspect of creative discipline is quite a shift in itself. But it can be quite good in many ways.
I tend to mostly write in my head anyway. I think it's an autism thing. I just write most of the music in my head and dance around where there's no apparent sound. So people think I'm like, really weird sometimes if you ever see me doing it and dancing around to something in my head. So I think I'll be okay. But yeah, I do like to ponder as well. So I don't think I'm going to get that time.
Well, I mean, paradigm shifts. I mean, Matt, you're talking about actually implementing one and creating a workspace that is bespoke. I mean, it's quite hard work to come up with something that doesn't exist yet, or that is so specifically you, and knowing exactly what you're going to need and planning for it, right?
I know what you mean, Nick. But one of the things that I say to people is try and recognize what serves you well when it comes to either purchasing equipment or the way you use it and the way you set it up. I did the thing that everyone does. Oh yeah, I'm going to buy 1 million synths and some outboard and a desk, and I got all that set up, and I was overwhelmed, and it didn't serve me well in that it didn't work with my approach to music production. And it took me a while to really recognize that. And when I recognized actually where do I sit and fit into the music production world, it was with this. And I'm sorry to cheap on about it, but this is my headspace, this is my headset, this is my connection to music. Is this? It's not having racks and racks of loads of separate synths and that kind of thing. It's very much this. So when I recognized that, I realized that this is the heart of the studio for me, and this is what I was going to have to start building everything around. So that's become so apparent. So for me to suddenly change that and buy a mixing desk, bottom line is you're always going to need a decent audio capture card. You're going to need to record stuff, or if you're going to tape, get yourself a nice tape machine or something. And the converters in like the Expert Sleepers ES9 sound absolutely brilliant. That's my sound card now. That's it there in a rack, which is kind of weird. I never thought I'd have that. I thought I'd go down the universal audio route or get a really high-end digi-design or something. No, it's not that. I don't need to do that.
You've got
for me.
Haven't you've got a X32 rack as well, haven't you, or something?
No, that was replaced by this actually, Nick. I did have the X32.
Oh, really? Wow.
And then this is it. So this is expandable, and it's great. It works great. The only other thing that comes to mind is your workflow and recording processes, and just don't be afraid to just kind of try and fathom out and have a studio design layout set up that is just you. It's just really you, and you don't be too influenced by all the YouTube videos you see of people saying you must buy this synth and that synth and that synth and that kind of thing. And hopefully, like me, you won't spend loads of money and then realize you didn't need to do that, and then sell it all and then spend loads more money again doing it this way around.
Right.
So,
well, yeah, that's good. I mean, experience makes. I think Nick Howes was suggesting that the idea of sort of introducing VR into things. I think that's another question. We've covered some of the VR things before, but I think it's still a weird. The frame rate's too low to not make you feel weird when you're in it. Yeah. I think that's the problem.
I think we've talked about this before, and I think if anything, augmented reality is going to be the one rather than VR. But a big change that's been for me over the past couple of years is actually having this set up for live streaming as well. And I think more and more people are doing that. We're sort of able to beam into each other's studios more often than not now and see people working in real time and that kind of thing. So camera setups, lighting equipment, microphones, being able to communicate with an audience in real time while you're making music, that's been a big shift for me.
Yeah, and just kind of going, I'm going to do a gig now. And, you don't have to promote. You just go, I'm just going to do it now. I'm going to see if anyone shows. I mean, yes, you want some sort of audience there. So, you might have, next Wednesday I'm doing this. Or like, for instance, next Wednesday we're doing Sonictalk. But if I wanted to, I mean, I don't very often do. But I could be at the studio at 5:30 one night and just go, oh, this is fun. I like the sound of this. I'll stream it now. I mean, and those are the sort of things that, having a setup that allows you to do it because without having to kind of go, oh, wait, where's the lead for this? Where's the stand for the camera? Where's this and whatever? You want to just be able to go bing. And that's the sort of stuff. And that technology has become the enabling of that. There's a new camera out. I think it's Insta360 Link, I think it's called. And it's a tiny little PTZ camera, 4K PTZ camera that will do, articulation and zooming, and it's got loads of AI stuff, so you can give it kind of like gestures and it'll do things like move to a specific point. Those are the sort of things that really enable people to just kind of get on with what they're doing and not have the technology be friction. And when you're talking video and multiple cameras and all that stuff, it's a very big learning curve. So I think those are the sort of things, Nick, to answer your question, that are going to be enablers and change the way that we work more than perhaps VR and that sort of stuff. Anyway, I don't want to keep you too long. I'm aware that we've been going on a bit longer than usual, which is great. And thank you, everybody, for the questions. It worked kind of, I think, today. Just a couple of glitches my end because I'm still not got the muscle memory for it. But thank you, everybody, all of you people in the Discord and the IRC and the YouTube. It's very much appreciated. So, folks, I guess, Chris, what can you plug now? There's time to go. What can you plug? Where can people find out all about what you're doing? What's out? Have you got your Boocast, of course, every month?
Okay.
Right?
Yeah, we've got Boocast number 4 coming up on the first Monday of the month, and we're getting ready for that now. We've also got a single coming out. We've got a remix from friends in the United States coming. We've got to film the video for that. It's not going to be a technically, madly technical video this time. We're literally going to film in the outside toilet. So just to give you an idea, we're changing pace a little bit. And also we've got some really nice news. We've got something quite exciting. I don't know if I can actually talk about it yet, but we've got something happening near the end of the year. So yeah, I'll keep you posted about that. So yeah, just check us out, batteryoperatedorchestra.com or booelectric.com. They both work, apparently. But yeah,
there it says that right at the bottom there. I've got it. I've got it there. But thank you for joining. Thank you for joining us, Chris. It's been an absolute pleasure. I hope we get you again as well. Thank you. So Matt, how's your release? You're working towards more of a traditional release, like a body of work rather than one per month, right? So.
Yeah, plowing through that. I've got quite a number of tracks already finished. I just kind of feel like I just want to put them out, but I just this goes for anyone. I know how much when you finish a track, you just want to get it out into the world. Don't wait. Build up the momentum. Do a bit of a marketing plan. Think about how you can release it. All of that. You know what I'm talking about. So yeah, that's very much underway. Gonna do some videos this week and next week because now it's cool enough to get back in the studio, sorted out my live streaming stuff again. So got a few things to look at, a few modules. Actually, this is an interesting one I just got, which is the Filtrone by Mr. G. Really interesting filter, this one. The interesting thing about it, it's got this tone control on it because you've got a rocker switch between 18 dB and a 24 dB slope. But the tone control allows you to blend the output from the 12 dB to the 24 dB. And it also allows you to blend between the 8 dB slope and the 6 dB slope. So it's the first time I've seen that on a filter where you can actually blend between different slopes. So I'm going to do a little video on that shortly as well. And I'll do a video, what I mentioned earlier as well, about playing with sample playheads and that kind of thing as well.
That sounds good.
That'd be cool.
Excellent.
But lovely to
keep us posted. We'll share it. Thank you. Cool. Yes, thank you, Matt, and also Paulie. Thank you too. I guess your immediate plans are somewhat governed by your partner's biological situation and when the baby's due. But we've got a video coming out fairly soon on Magical Synth Adventure channel, right?
2 or 3 days, hopefully, unless everything kicks off. And then at some point, I need to get, because I've been sitting on an album, talking about building suspense. I've been sitting on an album for about 3 or 4 years now that I need to get out. And I got a little bit paralyzed by fear with it or perfectionism or whatever. So I've decided I'm going to do a series of EPs instead and just get like 5 or 6 tracks done, ready, put them out. Because I think that's, rather than do like a big kind of prog rock double album kind of thing, which I was kind of planning for the grandioseness of it, I'm just going to do a series of EPs of my band Elmo Sex Whistle stuff. There's one album already on like iTunes and stuff like that if you want to listen to some quite interesting industrially circusy orchestral music. And yeah, that'll be it basically, and get around to finishing the Arcade Dream soundtrack at some point. So it's going to be a busy one.
Yeah, sounds like it. Well, thank you very much, everybody. Thank you, everybody in the chat. Thanks to all of our supporters on Patreon, whose names will scroll past at the end. And we'll see you all next time. Thank you, everybody. That was, well, I can't remember which button to press. I think it's this button. That was Sonic Talk, episode 74. See you all next time. Take care. Bye-bye now.